please. We're about to begin. If I may, please rise for the singing of the national anthem. Judy Lobianco, member of the class of 2018, Leaders to Learn From, and the pre-K supervisor of Livingston Public Schools in Livingston, New Jersey, will kick off your leadership experience this year.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Mic drop. That was beautiful. Thank you, Judy. Ladies and gentlemen, Judy Lobianco. Let's give her another round of applause. I would kill to be able to sing like that. My God. So a big resounding thank you, Judy. Thank you so much. You'll get a chance to learn so much more about the incredible work that she's doing to support student wellness later today. But before we kick off what we believe is going to be a unique and an immersive experience for you, and one we hope has already begun. If I can refer back to this morning's Thought Leadership Exchange, I'd love to give a quick round of applause to all of our Thought Leadership Exchange speakers. That's Dr. Doug Reeves, Dr. Lucy Calkins, our team of relationship builders, that's Kelly Spivey, Nancy Wagner and Julie Ramos, and of course, Mike Miley. Thank you so much for your work this morning on today's Thought Leadership Exchange. I'll be your cruise director for the rest of the next 2 days. My name is Matthew Sabellis. I'm the director of live and virtual events here at Education Week. And before we get started, I've got a few housekeeping notes that you may find useful. The first one is your Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is at Hyatt_meeting. So I went on to do this. If anyone's having any trouble, just let me know. We were having a little trouble getting on, so you just talk to me or the folks at the Reg Desk and we can help you. Your passcode will be Leader 2019. That's capital L and then singular, not plural, 2019. Throughout the day, you'll have the opportunity to improve your live event experience here and the quality of this event by giving us your feedback. Please do so by going to the URL you see on this screen here, which is leaders.edweek.org/2019 eval. We also want to encourage you to use the hashtag. You see that at the bottom of the screen here. It'll be at the top of the screen in most of the presentations today. We hope that you'll go to your phones, tell everybody what you're doing, and tell everybody the great lessons that these leaders are bringing. We'll also be going to at the Instagram page. We have EdWeek events. We'll be doing a series of photos. You'll see some of our stories and highlights there. Some of them, well, most of them will have you guys in them, so I want to encourage you guys to follow that along as well. We have an exciting agenda today, as you'll see on the screen, that is full of learning and networking. That'll be here both in this ballroom and at the Potomac rooms across the hall. It'll also be at your networking events that'll happen throughout, including upstairs this evening during your all-attendee reception today at 5:15 in the Chesapeake View room, which has a great view. Be sure to go. For our audience members that are watching on the live stream, thank you. For the live stream, I hope you enjoy your day as well. You'll be taking interesting sessions and other speaking engagements that we've queued up for you when we're not here in the ballroom. As you've already seen, there is a digital networking guide, and that is at leaders.edweek.org 2019 guide. You'll see the headshots and headshots and titles of those who are here in attendance. Some of the people who are there, you will see, are former leaders to learn from themselves. There are leader alumni. Some of those folks are here with us today. If you are an EdWeek Leaders to Learn From alumni, would you please stand so we can recognize your contributions? If everyone would join me, please, in welcoming back our alumni. So during our networking breaks, you're going to have the opportunity to connect with some of these folks, and later today at 4:30, where you're going to get to have the chance to hear from one of our alumni on his latest project, which is bringing equity to New York City public schools. But before we dive deeply into the content of this day with you, I'd like to now take a moment to thank our sponsors. Without the support of these organizations, this event and so many of EdWeek's other events that hopefully you've participated in, whether they've been our live online summits or our webinars, we hope that you've been able to experience those. It's because of sponsors like these that we're excited to bring their industry perspectives to you guys here over the next 2 days. When I call out your organization's name, if you could just stand so we know where you are in the room, that'd be great. Today's leader sponsor is Scholastic. Today's diamond sponsors... Over there. Today's diamond sponsors include Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and Renaissance. We'd also like to offer special thanks to Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which is our first ever scholarship sponsor. We're really excited about this at this year's event. Some of you in this room today are the recipients of that generosity. Today's gold sponsors, actually today and tomorrow's gold sponsors are American Reading Company, Canvas, thanks Canvas, Committee for Children, Heinemann, the Heinemann folks here, thank you very much, and the New York City Leadership Academy. Today and tomorrow's live stream sponsor is Solution Tree. Everyone on the live stream, please applaud. Very nicely done. Our alumni breakfast sponsor today was Benchmark Education. Thank you, Benchmark. Our event sponsors for the next 2 days are Avid, First, and Rosetta Stone Education. I'd also like to take a moment to thank several of our returning leaders and diamond sponsors. We want to give special thanks to Scholastic Education, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and Renaissance, who've supported this important work for many years. Today's event is simply not possible without these sponsors, so thank you so much. I'd also like to bring your attention to this year's bookstore and book signing. Dr. Lucy Calkins, who some of you had the opportunity to meet at today's Thought Leadership Exchange, will be signing her books at this afternoon's networking reception, which will be at 3 o'clock, located outside these doors, outside these ballroom doors. If you had the chance during lunch, you may have seen their table set up, and they'll be selling books throughout. And now, I have the distinct opportunity, I'm super stoked about this, to reintroduce you to a very special guest who will welcome all of the 2019 leaders to you today. This 20-year education veteran served as superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools beginning in 2013, where he employed transformational efforts to drive turnaround for low-performing schools and raise the district's graduation rate in the process by 15 percentage points. During his tenure, graduation rates for Black and Hispanic students surpassed the district average, and Black students also surpassed the state average. He's also responsible for designing a student-based budgeting process, enabling schools to innovate in order to meet the needs for their students while improving transparency and equity around the distribution of resources system-wide. Before his time in Indiana, he worked at the district level in Durham Public Schools and at the building level in Guilford County Schools in North Carolina. And in 2016, Education Week named him one of our honorees for Leaders to Learn From for his district charter partnerships. If everyone would please join me in welcoming back to the Leaders to Learn From stage, the new Chancellor of Washington, D.C.'s public schools, Dr. Louis Farabee.
Good afternoon. I have the distinct honor of welcoming you today to the Washington area. I am the proud chancellor for the District of Columbia Public Schools, and really pleased that I have the opportunity to serve a community that has invested tremendously in early childhood education, investments in mental health supports, and we're working to ensure that all of our students are prepared for college and career when they graduate. As I think about that work, and as I think about being an alum, as you come before this group, you want to say that your class is the best class. But I'm not here to share that with you. In fact, the class continue to get better. And if you haven't, they get some of the best headshot photos, so hold on to your headshots as much as you can. But in seriousness, this is a great opportunity and has been for me. As you think about the bold, innovative work that's happening across our country in education, this experience represents the best. It represents this notion that you can either win or learn when you're leading in transformational ways, or you can do both. And this is an opportunity, I think, to lift up what's happening across our nation and also recognize the work, but also this is a learning experience. And so the takeaway I would encourage all of our honorees today, the class of 2019, is to soak this up, to build a relationship with your class, and to ensure that this is not just an opportunity of recognition, but also an opportunity to learn as well. It's my pleasure, again, to congratulate and welcome to the Washington area, the class of 2019. We wish you the best, and without further ado, I am going to introduce to you our honorees. Thank you.
My primary goal for doing this work is to ensure that 12,000 scholars have real options.
I really believe that changing kids' opportunity to become autonomous, engaged, caring thinkers could change everything.
It's got to come from the heart. It's got to be something where you really feel that this is your calling.
I believe that all of our students can learn, no matter what they've come with. They can all win.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2019 live edition of Education Week's Leaders to Learn From. My name is Leslie Maxwell. I'm an assistant managing editor at Education Week, and I'm the executive project editor of Leaders to Learn From, and we're so happy to have all of you here. This is our 7th year of showcasing some of the best and brightest K-12 leadership in the country. When we started Leaders to Learn From in 2012, I then was a reporter, and I wrote some of the first leader profiles. And now I'm standing here as my 5th year as the project editor of this work, and we are so proud of our ability to elevate the great stories in education, the things that are working, and the well-deserved recognition that you and your colleagues are entitled to. In this short span of years, we have profiled nearly 100 district leaders from an incredibly diverse array of schools and districts and communities around the country. We've seen many of these folks, some of them here in the room with us. You just met Dr. Farabee, who've moved on to even higher profile jobs and positions, and they have found some well-deserved recognition for their work in the public eye. But what has been a constant and consistent thread across the dozens of leaders whose work we have elevated is their uncompromising commitment to the students, the parents, the educators, and communities they serve. And this year's class of leaders lives up to that tradition and then some. As our newsroom began our work of identifying and vetting the leaders who eventually became our 2019 class, a potent theme emerged: equity. Every single one of these leaders is actively working to knock down barriers that get in the way of all kids in their communities from having rich opportunities to learn. And by now, I hope you've read their stories, right? You've consumed those riveting profiles. So you know a little bit about what drives them. You know about some of the real headway that they're making on behalf of students in their communities. But now they are here for the next 2 days. They are here with us to meet all of you, to converse and debate with you, to share their lessons, their insights, their strategies and solutions that you can take back to your schools and districts. And we encourage all of you to engage in discussions with the leaders and with your colleagues who are here, and to take full advantage of this intimate setting that we have and the sessions that we've created that give you opportunities to talk and discuss and get your questions answered. The next 2 days are all about celebrating and learning from the extraordinary work that these educators are doing every day. And now, to help us all get in a mindset for tackling some big critical questions over the next 2 days, I'm going to share something that Superintendent Roberto Padilla, our leader from Newburgh, New York, told Education Week reporter Daryl Burnett in one of their interviews. He said, "I'm convinced that you can't change what you're willing to tolerate. No one here was really surprised about the inequities that exist in our school district. They know. So it begs the question, what are we going to do about it?" Wow, that is a powerful challenge to all of us. And so now I invite you to settle in and soak in the wisdom, the lessons, maybe some vulnerable moments about failure from these remarkable educators. But first, to tell us all a little bit more about why Education Week started this singular special report and event, it's my honor to introduce our President and CEO, Michelle Givens.
Good morning again. So I can tell you in one word why we created this special report and this event. And that word is people. It's people. K-12 education is a people-centered expedition. Educators like you are teaching almost 60 million young people. If you're a teacher, you've got more than 3.5 million teacher colleagues. And the last time I checked, about 85% of that school district budget is devoted to people. The ways that we identify and develop our most important asset, our people, is strongly connected to our ability to improve student learning and instructional practice. At Education Week, our job is to inspire and empower you. We believe an equitable and an excellent education is possible for all students, and we help you make it a reality. How do we do that? We do that by bringing together our independent reporting, our high-impact research, and diverse perspectives and voices from all across the country. We explore the successes and the struggles in schools, all while connecting you to others working to improve the field. Which brings me to this year's 9 leaders, who you are, I promise you, about to meet. We are here to celebrate and to take lessons from some of the best and the brightest school district leaders in these United States. These leaders and their work are not only an impressive testament to their capacity for supporting students, families, and community, but also a powerful counter to the sometimes negative narrative about our nation's public schools. These 9 people will definitely inspire and empower you. Added together, with our exciting keynote speakers, our interactive sessions, and networking breaks. You are, get ready, about to drink in 13 hours of real-world PD, real-world PD. We will take you beyond your areas of expertise. We will challenge your thinking and, yes, the status quo. And we will be honest with you about what worked and didn't and why. Gathering people together in one place like this is so important. This is the glue that creates and keeps our people networks together. And unexpected things tend to happen when you're live and in person. Right, Matthew? But here's what I mean by that. You never know who knows who, and who might be just the resource you are looking for, or maybe you didn't know you needed to be looking for. These 2 days are a really special opportunity for you to recharge your network, find solutions, uncover opportunities, and get energized. Get energized. Before I introduce our first 2019 Leader to Learn From, I have a quote, and I will attribute it to Oliver Wendell Holmes. And he said, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions." So, are you ready to meet this year's 2019 Leaders to Learn From? Let's do it. Let's do it. Enough of the blah blah. Let's get into it. It's fitting that we're starting the day by meeting a leader who has a profound respect for teachers and their work with students in the classroom. We'll see how close collaborations among teachers with the supportive guidance of an experienced coach is leading to creative math instruction, engaged students, and strong math performance. As this leader puts it, giving her rural students access to excellent and engaging math instruction is a social justice issue.
Pocahontas County is one of the most rural counties east of the Mississippi. It's over 70% state and national forest. There are huge pipeline problems in West Virginia. Right now, around 40% of the classes in grades 7 through 11 are taught by uncertified or undercertified people.
Oh, look at the bells on her house. That's cute.
So you have to wonder in that setting, are you really providing free and equal education to everybody? If some people are expected to learn mathematics from someone else who doesn't necessarily know mathematics. From the first maybe 2 years, 2 years into teaching math, I really started watching kind of the horizon of how schools do or don't support teachers to get better, and how odd it is that teaching and learning is such a community exercise, but there really isn't community among educators in secondary math. So I'd been kind of building my own change theory for, 8 years or so.
Yes.
Don't you think yes? I
otherwise
mean, we're
it's
just
me.
developing this right now. So don't you guys think yes?
It seems
That'd be
cruel
super weird.
otherwise.
Yeah.
The two main things that I'm up to are either working with individual teachers in their classroom. So I really believe in embedded professional development. So either I'm modeling a lesson that we're trying to work on together, or the teacher is, and either way we're giving each other feedback on the same set of questions. Or I'm organizing and orchestrating teachers to work together.
Architect's direction here, the pre-number 2.
Like if you feel good about this problem, you better claim it as the architect. Like I
So
want to be
maybe
architect
this
on
actually
one.
goes along like on your
You think everything is fine and you're you're on your way to be a teacher now, and you're in charge for the rest of your career in your classroom. And it wasn't so much that I'm not in charge anymore, but it's so nice to have someone to emulate and to look up to. You know, even as a teacher, I still want to be a learner.
Pretty traditional in a coaching model that a coach observes. We try to ensure that at least as often teachers are observing.
Even if what I'm asking you to do feels super awkward today, I want you to just roll with it, okay? And then at the end, we'll talk about what worked, what didn't, and what kind of changes you guys think we should make before we kind of finalize this. Does that sound okay?
Right, because it's hard to keep track of all that algebra in your head.
So compared to kind of working as a group with no structure at all, what was better about using these roll cards and what was worse?
The math program before Joanna started implementing some of the ideas that she has, we were in rows. Here's the math book. We started chapter 1. A teacher would get up in front. They would lecture. This is how you do the problems, and then the kids would sit and work on problems or have them for homework.
See, when you're in rows, you're kind of in your own bubble. If you do get stuck on a problem, you're kind of scared because you don't want to ask your teacher. Each of you is going to have a problem eventually, and it's slowing down the process.
Okay, so go ahead and start navigators.
Would equal whatever number, and you'd have to divide it by 250. See how many 250?
I truly don't know if I'd still be a teacher today if it wasn't because of Joanna. It's really nice to know that you have someone working so hard and who truly cares about you in your classroom, cares about your kids, but also cares about you as a person and makes sure that you're okay in your job. It's important that teachers are happy in their job so that they continue and want to, spread the love of learning to their kids. I think that's super important, and she certainly spreads the love of learning to all of us as teachers.
That's what you say. You be real. That's fine. We're not judging each other today, okay?
I miss teaching on a daily basis myself, and it would be really cool to think of a new version of teacher that isn't just a teacher, but is this hybrid teacher leader doing the work in their own classroom and then letting us be a little bit creative about how to get them outside that classroom and better network to other people. In so doing, I think we can retain way more really motivated and driven people in the profession of teaching and also allow them to grow one another as they learn.
Hi, my name is Sarah Schwartz, and I'm a reporter with Education Week. And I'm here with Joanna Burt-Kinderman, the math instructional coach in Pocahontas County Schools in West Virginia. So Joanna and I only have about 6 minutes to share with you some of the highlights of her work here today, but don't worry, because you'll have some time to speak with her later during her Follow the Leader breakout session. So Joanna, as an instructional coach, a lot of your work is focused on working with teachers to improve classroom instruction. But teachers can sometimes be wary of coaches or of anything where it seems like there are people coming into their classroom and telling them what to do. And I know that you have really tried to avoid those kind of prescriptive solutions in your work. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've developed that teacher buy-in and why it's important to have teachers leading this kind of change?
Absolutely, and I'd just start with, it's been said better than I earlier today that buy-in is in of itself a myth. If we think about what, as leaders, we want learning to look like, the first adjectives that come to mind are not fidelity, uniformity, regularity. And so when we think about our teachers as learners, these folks who we want to continue to improve in their own practice, we need to make sure that that's not what we're asking of them. We need to be asking of them to wonder, to hypothesize, to test their theories. And so I didn't start this work coming in and saying, let me show you how I teach, even though I'm a pretty good teacher, right? I started this work by coming in, smoothie in hand, and saying, what really bugs you? If we want all students college and career ready in mathematics, why aren't we achieving that yet? And why to each of those sub-reasons are each of those things happening until we have such a picture of the problems of our own workflow that we're able to pick one that we feel really hungry to solve. And that doesn't look the same for every learner even though those learners are teachers, and we have to respect that, follow that, and join that community. So while I love this recognition, I'm so humbled by it, this project and this work is ours, not mine.
So you talked about finding a problem first and sort of starting there. And I know that the process that you've developed for actually improving classroom instruction is really iterative in that way. Can you tell us a little bit about why it's important to be doing that work as a community, and why it's sometimes a good idea to just let go of things that teachers say, this just isn't working for me?
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost that teachers have an aptitude, and I'm a teacher, I would agree with this, to be pretty sure of themselves. They care deeply about what they're doing, and so they can get themselves in a position of sort of righteous defensiveness. That's not a learning position. It's not a community position. And so instead of like, what idea do you love? How do you like to run your class? What are your solutions? If we instead start with our problems and define what outcome we want, and then sort of test these ideas and treat them as tests, and come back and report on those together, the ideas generated from one another also become the mechanism for sharing. And so one teacher's idea gets better in partnership with another teacher, and that's also the mechanism for sharing that idea or that way of practicing their art.
And so given what you know about the importance of teacher voice, how can school and district leaders think really systematically about including teachers in decision-making, even in the classroom or in other places across schools and districts?
I think that's such an important question, and it's work that I'm just kind of branching into right now. And I would say that first and foremost, teachers have to be invited into defining the problem itself. And if we don't give them that invitation, if we then say the problem is your students aren't talking to one another, while that may be true, you don't have an immediacy of something that teacher wants to work on. And so from the very ground level, it's really important that teachers are deeply engaged in their own wondering, in their own hypothesizing. And I would believe that particular to secondary math, which is where most of this work lives, we do have wonderful administrators across the state of West Virginia and across this country, but most of them are not secondary math experts. And so as administrators, as leaders, you really need those very best teachers to be invited into the room to understand those problems of practice and to understand what solutions teachers have the most appetite to adopt. There are tons and tons of ways to make teaching and learning better. And that doesn't really matter. We often see these rankings. What matters is, what is a teacher willing to try on, try out, and improve?
You talked about getting those groups of teachers into the room and sort of sharing what they think the problem is. So I know that you've recently been working with West Virginia University on an NSF-funded project to sort of lay the foundation for a statewide master teacher network. Can you tell us just a little bit about that work and why it's so important in West Virginia specifically?
Absolutely. So I certainly want to give a shout out here to WVU and to Dr. Matt Campbell. Usually, research enters practice with a prescribed solution. And that's not a posture that's best for our most creative, engaged teachers. I work with awesome teachers. They're not very interested in someone else coming in and saying, this is how you ought to do things. But when we invite someone in to say, why is what we're doing working? We know it is. We see our test scores on the rise. We see that we're retaining teachers. We see teachers engaged together in this process. That's a different role for research to have, and an interesting one. And so we're working with just a capacity building proposal right now, getting interest from around the state to kind of define what would it look like if we could identify math teachers who are the best according to their peers, teach them some improvement science about how to do improvement work themselves, and then network those ideas that get generated through that process and through that sharing so that we can actually have this new resource that's embedded in our state connected between our states so that our best are getting better, and as they're getting better, they're lifting up everyone else behind them.
Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have up here, but I just want to ask everyone to join me in giving a big round of applause for Joanna. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
How do you improve instruction? How do you help teachers reach their fullest potential in the art of teaching? If you're trying to come in and say, I have a better way to teach than you do, you're going to fail, says math instructional coach Joanna Burt Kinderman. From her perspective, teaching math should empower teachers and students alike. Joanna, please join me here at the podium. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the stage staff writer Evie Blad and Angela Ward. A little dramatic flair there. And Angela Ward, who comes to us from the Austin, Texas Independent School District.
Hi, everyone. We just wanted you to know we're here. This is how we come into every room. I had the privilege of profiling Angela and talking to a lot of people who work with her. And something that every teacher I spoke with and every person I spoke with said was that Angela has read every book about equity that has ever been written. And that anytime they ask her a question, she cites someone's thoughts on the issue. Another thing that I asked people, I said, well, what do you want to know about Angela's work? What should I say? And they said, well, I just want to know what all she does. Because I couldn't even write it all down. This woman is doing so much in so many areas of the district. And one thing that Angela did is she became Dr. Angela Ward this week, and I think we should give her a round of applause. I think it's pretty awesome that while you're helping other people learn that you've been growing and doing that hard work.
Thank you.
We've got a real equity theme here, and something that I really want to talk to Angela about is culturally responsive teaching, which is something that a lot of teachers said. One teacher even cried, teared up a little in our phone call. She said, I came to Angela and felt like I didn't understand this, and instead of making me feel defensive, she gave me help. And I think that's pretty awesome. I also think culturally responsive teaching is something we talk about, and everyone thinks they get it, and maybe they don't. So you want to just talk about what you mean by that and why that's important.
So for me, culturally responsive teaching starts first with who the teacher is. A teacher can't become a culturally responsive teacher until they actually know who they are, what their values are, what their biases are, what their beliefs are, and ultimately how that impacts their worldview and how that impacts the way that they support the students in our school district. And it's important that a teacher understands that inside they're a certain person, and then outward that reflects what they do. And so we really focus on cultural proficiency first in order to get someone to be prepared to be culturally responsive. And so once I know that I'm a teacher who comes from a particular background where I've been raised in a bubble, and that bubble looks one way, and the students that I'm working with look completely different from me. I might be a white teacher from a very white neighborhood, middle class, and many of our students are black and brown, and they're not necessarily from the same socioeconomic backgrounds as many of our teachers. And so we give teachers the space to have those conversations and to dig into who they are in the context of our district-provided professional learning. So we do it on the job, and that's very important to me, that we don't require our staff to do Saturday professional learning, that we don't require them to stay after school,
but can we provide substitutes so they can have this conversation in the actual context of their work every day? And so a culturally responsive teacher really leans into, I might not know everything I need to know about this student, but it's my responsibility as a teacher to get to know as much as I can about this student so that when it comes to math, when it comes to science, I know a little bit about them and their interests, and I can pique their interest to learn a little bit more about something they may not be as interested in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And teachers might not always recognize the assumptions they make coming into a classroom based
Absolutely.
on their background, right?
Absolutely. I find that when we have these conversations, we'll start with an image, and we'll bring a concept to the professional learning session, and we'll hear people say, I never thought about it that way. I never really understood the plight of a black woman raising a black child, because I often use myself as an example. I talk about my children. I talk about the perspective of being a black woman raising black boys in a predominantly white area, which is a very different thing that we don't really talk about. We talk a lot about our lower socioeconomic students, but we don't talk about the students that are also black, and they're not being raised in lower socioeconomic areas. Race does not matter when it comes to economics. Mm-hmm. We receive the same impacts no matter how much money our parents make. Mm-hmm. And our black children are marginalized in many spaces across socioeconomic statuses, as well as our brown students. And then when you layer another identity like LGBTQ on some of our students and race, the outcomes are even more detrimental to the students. And so we find ways to use ourselves as examples and invite staff to find their stories and their narratives and tell their narratives and think about how their world view and their ways of engaging in the world impact the ways that they support our children or not support our children.
And like many districts, Austin has an achievement gap that breaks along racial lines. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your work connects to that and how this work will help tackle that.
So there are many different ways that my work attacks the achievement gap. A few things. Austin ISD was looking at a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016, we looked at the high rate of suspensions in pre-K. And overwhelmingly, we were suspending a lot of black boys in pre-K. So we're saying all the black boys are bad, right? Well, no, that's not the case. They're not all bad. And so one of the things that I did was led a group of staff and teachers, teacher staff, parents, community members, and we had a dialogue over the course of that first semester and made recommendations to our board, and we ended suspensions for pre-K through 2, and the state of Texas followed suit and ended pre-K through 3 suspensions for the state. So that's one way that my work addresses the achievement gap, because if we're suspending students in pre-K, we're not even giving them an opportunity to begin learning, let alone be in the classroom and learn. And so I also work very closely with the Race Equity Council that is made up of some of the same types of roles, parents, teachers, principals, community members, and we tackle these issues. We have conversations around discipline disparities, and we create areas of focus. They really support the work that we're doing around restorative practices, and they give us input as to how these things are impacting our students in their different schools. We bring very critical issues around gender identity and gender expression to the conversation, and we create this safe space where we can have critical dialogue around, and how do we address these things when they show up and they impact our students negatively.
Right. And so I think it's, sorry, we're out of time, but I think it's really interesting because what you've talked about in a couple of questions really is that you're working on both the personal level and the systemic level.
Yes.
And it sounds like you can't do one without the other, right?
You can't, yeah,
You can't.
very important.
You have to both put students in the position where equity can happen, but also give teachers the tools they need to be a part of that.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Well, I hope that you all will take the time to speak with Dr. Ward later in our Follow the Leader time. And thank you so much for joining me on stage.
Don't leave yet. Building a school environment where all students and staff feel valued and supported takes a commitment to challenging work, even in a city like Austin, Texas, which sees itself as a beacon of inclusivity. In a district where the majority of students are Black and Latino, the teaching core is overwhelmingly white. Angela's core work involves working closely with teachers and administrators to provide professional development that helps them understand how their own identities and experiences affect how they teach, interact with students, and lead schools. She's an expert in fostering difficult conversations, challenging norms, and giving educators tools to be more culturally proficient in their classrooms and schools. When one of her fourth grade teachers needs a reminder to give her students opportunities to address their differences and to counter the negative messages they hear in broader society, she turns to the sticky note on her classroom wall. And it's a quote from Angela, which reads, "Every classroom is culturally responsive, but to whom?" Angela, please join me here at the podium. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the stage Education Week's Associate Editor, Christina Samuels, and Superintendent Suzanne Lacey from Talladega County Schools in Talladega, Alabama.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Samuels, and I'm an associate editor with Education Week, and it is such a pleasure to be here today with Dr. Suzanne Lacey, the superintendent of Talladega Schools, to talk about the work that her district has been doing in technology. Dr. Lacey, your district emphasizes project-based learning with technology with your students. Could you talk a little bit about what that means and why that's been a good fit for you?
Yes, thank you. For the past 11 years, we have been on a steady journey, an aggressive journey to integrate project-based learning powered by technology for all students in Talladega County Schools. We've talked a lot about equity today, and technology has really evened the playing field for all of our kids. We have kids that live in very remote areas that do not have access to technology, but we are working on universal access for technology in our county. This year we have a project called the Rolling Study Hall Project, which has added Wi-Fi to school buses so that students have that little extra bit of time to use their devices on the way to school and on their way home from school.
Wow, that is amazing. Again, especially for a group of students who may not already have that opportunity. Now, a lot of people may read what you're doing with technology and think, you know, can we do this? Do we have the funding to do this? You know, they have some special sauce going on down there. But, you know, tell me what your strategies have been for making these big changes for your district cost effective.
Well, when we set forth on this journey 11 years ago, it was really a non-negotiable. We knew that we wanted to equip our students with the technology skills that they needed to be college and career ready. So that took a lot of, it was a very interesting topic for our communities. It took a lot of partnerships, a lot of input from others, in order to make this happen. I laugh and say that we have washed walls instead of painted walls in order to purchase the technology that we needed for our kids, but we couldn't wait any longer. We were not receiving a whole lot of funding from our state level, so we had to invest, our board had to invest this at the local school level. We have spent tens of millions of dollars currently to invest in technology to support student learning, and it was just the power of technology that energized the curriculum for our kids. And when we got the taste of it, there was no turning back. We have done everything in our power to continue this trajectory for learning and to enhance instruction through the use of technology.
You know, talk with me a little bit, because I think what you're talking about there is obviously an urgency at your district level and probably throughout the district to making this happen. For people who might not be aware, maybe they're in less, more suburban or urban areas, tell us a little bit about what the urgency is there in the rural community that you serve.
Yes, the majority of our students never leave Talladega County during the time that they're growing up. We wanted to be able to connect our kids with the world. We wanted them to have the opportunity to see Washington, D.C. virtually, or to see another country virtually. So we knew we couldn't take field trips in order to do that. So through the power of technology, we're able to do projects and connect with other students and other schools across the world and the nation. And that was very important for us to be able to educate our kids on a global perspective, so that when they did graduate from college, or high school rather, and go on to college, they had a sense of what was out there beyond Talladega County.
And obviously, with the work that you're doing, this is something that requires partnerships at all levels. Obviously, your school board has really been on board with that. Do you have any advice for others who might be wanting to get that kind of buy-in from their boards to support these kinds of initiatives?
Yes, in Talladega County Schools, we do love to take field trips. So one of our favorite activities is to load up on a bus or a plane and go see what others are doing across the nation as far as great instructional practices. Early on in our learning, we visited states across the U.S. and to see what others were doing with the power of technology. I'm a firm believer in seeing is believing. If I can see it and I know we can do it, our board members are much the same way. They were very excited about the opportunity that technology brought to our students, and it has been a wise investment and a very needed investment, one that we have no regrets in doing over the last 11 years.
You know, your ties to the community are so deep. I wonder if you might be able to talk a little bit about your experience in the district and maybe what that has been able to do for you when you talk about some of these initiatives, the fact that you have such deep ties in the community.
Yes. I've worked in Talladega County for 34 years. I started as a classroom teacher a long time ago. And from that point, I've done just about every job, and now every job is superintendent in the school district. So I have taught our kids, I have hired kids that I taught, and now parents that were my students when I was teaching, and a principal are now the parents of children in our school district. So I think the credibility and the trust that has been built over time through these relationships has really sustained an effort of change throughout Talladega County schools. Change is a big word and a big, hairy process sometimes, but I will say that our change has been systemic and sustained, and because of those two factors, we've really been able to move forward with exceptional learning opportunities for kids, and the relationships and the trust that has been built over time in our communities has been a definite plus.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. I wish that we had more time to talk here, but you will have more time to speak with your leaders later in the event. Thank you. A round of applause for Dr. Lacey.
With creativity and persistence, Suzanne has turned her rural Alabama district into a haven of student learning that's enriched by robust educational technology and project-based learning. She does this by doing some key things effectively: leveraging limited resources, empowering her teachers, involving students, and delivering an engaging, hands-on schooling experience that has helped improve achievement and school climate across the district. Suzanne, please join me at the podium. There's my peeps. Okay, it's now my pleasure to welcome Education Week staff writer Corey Mitchell and Shomari Jones. Shomari is with the Bellevue Public Schools in Bellevue, Washington.
Shomari, thanks for joining us all the way from across the country. How was the trip here?
That was terrible. I mean, all of my conferences are on the East Coast, and folks don't understand that, like, 8 o'clock breakfast is 5 a.m. for me. Not cool, people. Like, 1 more hour would be amazing.
So we're going to be brutally honest today, as you can probably tell. So, Shomari, tell me how you ensure that students are at the center of your work.
So I'm one of those unique stories where I parachuted into the education system. I didn't go through the traditional pathway of being a teacher. My immediate former job was at the Urban League. I've done social justice work for my entire career. The Bellevue School District realized that they needed to institute these type of changes for our young people. They called me to step up to the plate. One thing I notice oftentimes, especially sitting in many of our adult-led meetings, is that we do not keep students at the center. You know, a lot of our adult problems get in the way from us being able to make the difference that we need for those young people. And so what I do is we have these table tent cards. It's a really formal process when you're sitting at the cabinet table and you have to flip the card on its side in order to raise your hand to say you have a question. Well, on my card there's an image of a student, and one that I did not serve as well as I could have. And this is inspiration for me. I've seen this kid, he walked this trajectory of success until someone let him go. They did not allow him to successfully accomplish what his mission was because they didn't check in on him. They didn't love him and affirm him all the way through. And I think about that kid every day. He was only 2 classes away from graduation, people, right? And he didn't come back. And I think about this cat every day. I keep a picture of him in my wallet all the time.
Yeah. Can you paint a picture of the Bellevue schools for us? I mean, what do the students look like, and what types of homes do they come from?
Yeah, we're a small, medium or so district, 20,000 students, 29 school buildings. Presently, we're sort of a unique flip to what you'd experience across most of America. Our students are 42% Asian, 37% white, and the numbers go drastically down from there, 3% black, 12% Hispanic Latino. And we're a very, very affluent school district. And I found myself having a hard time engaging in some of the conversations that we've been having over the course of the past 2 days because my experience is so vastly different. It's upside down. We have wealth and a substantial amount of it. We're not closing buildings. We're building, and not at a rapid enough pace for the influx of people who are coming into our district. And because we're Microsoft and Amazon and Costco and T-Mobile and Boeing, where our students land on a socioeconomic status ladder is much higher than many of the students across our nation.
So that must make your work tough because when you start talking about equity, there are perhaps some families who feel that opening up opportunities to others means that you're going to take something away from them. How do you connect with those families?
Yeah, I became hood famous, and not like for the right reasons, you know? Like, yeah, some of y'all caught that. It may take a little bit longer for some others, but like really famous really fast for instituting conversations around race in my community, which were ones that folks did not want to have, right? We have a lot of folks who move into Bellevue because of us being the #1 school district in the state. They want the best for their students. They immigrate here. They come with a lot of wealth. And the simple idea that we're using race as a determining factor for how we spend money, for how we offer opportunities to students, there are those who feel as though we're going to take something away from them. And so it's a different equity. And it took me a minute, and if you ever have a chance to read my article, it's really fascinating. It took me a minute to understand, truly understand, where some of our immigrant communities were coming from, as they were coming from countries that were a little bit more confining, not allowing them to have access to the things they wanted. So that's why they came. They came for the freedom that we offer. And they feel as though if I use race as a predictor, right, not use it as a predictor, if I understand that it's a predictor, and I'm using my knowledge of that to identify how we're going to institute programming and support for students, that we're inevitably going to realize that we're giving too much over here and we're going to yank it away from them. So the argument is really real, and it's people coming to us from a heartfelt position of a sense of potential loss.
Yeah. I mean, has your work allowed you to identify any blind spots that you brought to the work?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that we're not really leading if we're not growing along the way and making mistakes while doing it. We have a lot of blind spots, and one of the biggest blind spots that everyone in this room has is bias. We come to the table with this institutionalized bias. Many of us, it's unconscious, but we have these perceived understandings of how society is set up. And what we should be doing in order to service our students. And I'm telling you, we cannot do this work without the voice of our students. And we cannot do this work without the voice of our families. They're often left out of the conversation. Our elementary families are in it. By the time they get to high school, they've been so underserved themselves, their voice has been so excluded from the conversation, they don't feel like they have agency to get in, right? And so we oftentimes don't have them at the table.
And then just a last point, how important is it to engage families, and do you even see disparity and inequity in how we engage families?
Most definitely. I mean, I think the numbers of how we identify how our students are underserved are mirrored, if not even deeper, when it gets to our families and who feels as though they have agencies. I think about all my families who moved to our country who speak a different language and where their entry point is or lack thereof, and what they look like. Oftentimes those who have the least amount of agency are our Black and brown students and families, our Native American families, our Pacific Islander families. We leave them out all the time because, they're not showing up. It's because you're not going to get them. Yeah. Maybe they can't come to you.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'd like for us to give a big round of applause to Shamari.
Thank you, sir.
Shamari's work elevates and addresses the needs of the small but growing population of Black, Latino, and Native American students in the affluent Bellevue, Washington school district that overall has some of the highest achievement in the state. His work to ensure that the district's low-income, non-white students have the same opportunities to succeed as their more privileged peers is done through direct engagement with teachers, students, and parents. Shamari.
Yes, ma'am.
Come on down.
We're talking mess up here, I'm sorry.
We are.
Newburgh is 60 miles north of New York City, right along the beautiful Hudson River. This is a place where people have grit. There's a part of the community that deals with a lot of poverty, and all the things that we know that come with poverty are true. Yet, we still see children come to school and give their very best despite those challenges. And so our equity agenda is very key to this work. As someone who has gone through the Newburgh school system, when I graduated high school, I left and kind of didn't turn back. And that was sort of the thinking back then, is that in order to be successful here, you had to leave. It was always my dream to be able to come back and lead this school district. My primary goal for doing this work is to ensure that 12,000 scholars have real options, whether they be the 20 or so CTE programs that we have, or the new early college high school opportunity, or our P-Tech program that allows our students to go through high school and get their associates. We want to be a place where every child experiences excellence. In our effort to collaborate and be inclusive, we're doubling down on the primary years.
Hey, Dr. Padilla just wants to come see us learn.
We noticed there were a number of kids coming to us in kindergarten who perhaps weren't ready for kindergarten. If we were to dramatically impact that readiness, we had to start before pre-K.
Wow, can we count how many books are in there?
I started coming here to story time at the Newburgh Library, and they had a whole display on the Newburgh basics. A new mom, I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that my job was to be an educator. I didn't know where to start, how to start, so it was really overwhelming with the influx of information, but at the same time it was kind of cool to have the roadmap to follow for Sam.
There's no grand level of education that's needed on the parents' end. It's simply being mindful about how you interact with your baby during the ages of birth to 3 years old. And so if we're very intentional and we support our families, then imagine what that would do to a child entering into the school system where we take them and love them up. You can't just look at numbers and then create a plan of action. There are times when that's appropriate, but when we're talking about impacting students, it's critical that we enlist their voices. What we did very intentionally was to design a school that was non-traditional, because the students that we saw struggling in our school system were disengaged and had expressed not knowing what success really felt like.
They make it at their priority to make sure I get what I need. It gives you an extra step to see what you want to do in life. Because like, without Wes, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
We're not an inclusive school district yet, where every child experiences excellence, but it's where we want to be. I want to believe that there won't be this mass exodus at graduation like it was for me. That people will, in true ways, say, I can be a leader here, I can contribute here, and ultimately launch a renaissance here that it's never seen.
I'm Daryl Burnett. I'm a staff writer with Education Week, and I got the privilege to interview Dr. Padilla here. So Dr. Padilla, in the last couple of years, when the conversation around equity, most people talk about eradicating the effects of poverty in the classroom. You actually kind of flip that model on its head, and you say that school systems can actually be a cause of poverty. Explain that.
Thank you. First, I just want to say I'm extremely honored and humbled to receive this recognition, and thank you, a heartfelt thank you to Education Week and all the sponsors and the many friends that are here in the room for recognizing the work that's taking place in our community. Yeah, I'm a strong believer that school systems are tremendously powerful, and the people who work in them are extremely influential. And that intersection between a teacher and a child cannot be overstated. That interaction is actually very key to a child being able to graduate from a school system and have true options in life, where they can make decisions for themselves. Or that intersection could perpetuate the school to prison pipeline. And if we were to just simply peel the onion for a second, I'd ask you to consider one thing. I think it starts with our mindset and our belief systems. Every single time you thought someone had potential, I'm convinced a change happened with you. So give that some thought for a second. You simply believed someone else had potential, and you actually were the person most impacted. And the reason why I believe that is you raised expectations. You were willing to invest more of yourself. You were more flexible. Sadly, the opposite is true. Every single time an adult sees a child and doesn't see his or her potential, they lower expectations, they're not as willing to invest, and we already know what the results are.
Wow. So what role does superintendents have in trying to create equity within school districts?
So I think the role of the superintendent is essential. And I think a strong superintendent leads with an audacious vision and mission. So I'll just give you a little insight. When I came on board in 2014, I talked to a lot of community stakeholders and families, and most importantly, students. And when I tried to understand what the purpose of the school district was by way of what their vision and mission was, I got, I don't know, or I got many different responses. And so I knew that was a good starting place. And I also know that if we're going to lead in a way that's extremely compelling, then we have to come up with something that is powerful, and that's what we did. And so in our community, we have kindergartners all the way to the person who works in the bodega who can speak to our vision and mission. And so in our community, it's inspiring students to become tomorrow's leaders beyond academy field. It's very contextualized, right? It doesn't sound like what you would find in other school systems. Academy field is very specific to Newburgh. It's where our children graduate. And so notice I said inspiring students to become tomorrow's leaders beyond academy field. And so when you break that down, what we're simply saying is we need to love our scholars enough, like they were part of our own family, because what we want for our own families is not simply to just get to graduation. That's a minimal expectation. It's about loving them like they're your family and inspiring them to be a leader beyond the point they leave your school system.
So one of the interesting things about you is you came back to your home school district. Describe your first couple of years. What are some of the actions you took after you became the superintendent of the district that you graduated from?
So it's been a very interesting roller coaster.
Okay.
And I say that only because we've been engaged in some real intensive work that has been abandoned for quite some time. But what I noticed early on was that this community didn't want to look at more data. They knew it. They wanted a leader, and they wanted to know that they had the support that if we were going to take a particular direction, that we were all going to do it together. And so we took a look at how do we define equity? Similar to what I did around establishing the vision, is that we all have to speak the same language. We all have to be moving in the same direction, and it's hard to do that if you can't name it the same way. And so that was some of our initial work, is to make sure there was a common understanding, there was consistent language around what we meant when we talked about equity. And then we started to draft goals, we established a board policy, we created an office of equity with a new senior level cabinet position because we felt it was essential that that voice be at the table. And we were doing things that reflected what we put into our budget and into our strategic plan.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but let's give Dr. Padilla a hand.
Plastered across classroom walls and throughout the hallways of the administration building in the Newburgh, New York School District are two words: inclusive excellence. It's a vision statement and a call to action for a school district that for too long had left behind its students most in need. Roberto and his team have pressed ahead with concrete changes to uproot inequities in schools and to weave equity into the fabric of the district's daily operations and decision-making. What that looks like on the ground are moves to overhaul the budget and administrative staff to redirect resources into schools most in need. And he's begun the task of moving his most talented teachers to schools and classrooms with students most in need. Dr. Padilla, come on down.